Zillow is not your friend. It's just another advertising company after your information. Hi, I'm Bill Gross, my weekly real estate report. In 2006, when Zillow entered the real estate industry, financed by venture capitalists, it didn't have to make a profit. It just had to build a name and a brand, and it provided amazing resources, information, and data to consumers and real estate professionals alike. It was a fantastic source of information and data insight. And they published a book in 2015 that was just changing the industry by taking data and asking key questions like, should I overprice a listing or not? And the answer was no. Or what effect does staging have on properties? Or do real estate agents treat their own homes the same as they do customers? It was an amazing book. But today, Zillow is really just a $10 billion corporation in terms of their market cap. That's an advertising company. Their basic business is to get people's attention and then sell it to various parties, real estate agents, mortgage companies, home flippers. They're the biggest home flipper being Open Door. And so now they're no longer focused on what's best for the consumer. They're really best for what's best for Zillow, and they have to be. They're a shareholder-owned company. Their obligation as a company is to do what's best for the shareholders, not necessarily best for the various parties. And one of the rules in technology is if you're not the paying customer, then you are the product. So when homeowners and home buyers go onto Zillow and don't pay Zillow anything and think they're getting a service for free, the reality is they're not. What they're getting is their information sold to other people. They're giving it up for free for the information, but Zillow is making billions selling that information to other parties who are approaching them in a way the customer wouldn't probably ordinarily choose. Let's get into details. Before we do though, let's take a look at the market and see where it's always important to start with the actual market statistics. The number one news last week was the mortgage rates again moved back up slightly above 7%, then it ended the week just below at 6.97. Now it's troubling. The rates are towards the high for the year to date, but it's also assuring they haven't busted through that 7% barrier. So rates went up. Are they going up? I have a crystal ball. It just doesn't really work very well. It's over my shoulder. The crystal ball doesn't tell us where rates are going, but we know where rates are. They're 7%, and that has taken some of the pressure off the market, but still leaves a lot of qualified buyers. If we go a little deeper into the market, what's up with the inventory? Because the only way to have a housing crash is to have so many sellers looking to sell, they're willing to cut the prices. We're nowhere near that. Take a look at inventory levels, still at historic lows other than the pandemic years, the lowest ever on record by a large part, and even tying 2021's pandemic low. So we're very few homes for sale, but even more than that, you notice new listings are dropping off the table. So not only is the inventory low, but sellers are increasingly saying, hey, if prices are going down, I'm not interested in selling, and that's going to keep prices from going down much more. Take a look at where the market is now. 40,000 new listings versus in a typical year, we had about 70, 68,000 new listings, so about 50% less. Even in the pandemic levels, this is a new low by a wide margin. So that's telling you where the market's headed going forward. Additionally, take a look at solds. Well below the pandemic levels, where it was a boom market, well below the pre-pandemic, where it was a healthy market. So overall, the number of solds are telling us that buyers sellers aren't agreeing, therefore sellers are pulling the homes off the market and buyers aren't able to get property. So what's that all mean for the marketplace? Well, here's an overall evaluation from Altos Research, one of my favorite sites, and they rated a seller's market as a 40 basically, and staying clearly there. Median prices in Los Angeles staying about $1.38 million. The median list price has gone up. That tells me that real estate agents are aggressively getting people to list and enticing them with higher list prices, but the actual price isn't selling for any higher. Days on market staying steady, median days on market dropping slightly but about the same. And overall, the market in Los Angeles is healthy and typical for a spring market. One of the factors that's going to keep prices from dropping is if a buyer doesn't buy a house, what's their alternative? Well, the most common alternative is renting a property. And for the last few months, buyers who weren't buying were able to rent and rates were falling. But now, of course, rents have turned around. So the overall inflation is pitching up the values. And we can see here, according to Forbes magazine, that rents reversed course in February and have rose for the first time in 5 months. So if rents go up, then we know that buyers then will have a choice between paying higher rent or perhaps getting a 30-year fixed rate mortgage and locking in their rate for a long period of time. One of the things I would say to people is that the housing affordability is not a problem. It's a design choice or a strategy by our government officials. Certainly California, government officials want to build less homes and want to have less people. Certainly less other than high rises and multifamily units. Take a look at this stunning number of new construction started, just dropping off the page in the last year or two. And so it tells you is if new homes aren't starting, in any other business, if you're talking about, cars, Tesla just builds more cars. Coca-Cola, if people want more Coca-Cola, they just make more cans of it. In most businesses, newspapers, they'll just print more magazines or books. But for some reason in housing, while we say people want more based on affordability, the number of homes being built is dropping. And that's going to keep prices from rising up. So that brings us to my title, Zillow's Not Your Friend. How does Zillow help us? Well, again, what I would say is, in the beginning, they were more of a resource and an interesting way for consumers to get information. But now they've become like so many, just another corporation making money to pay attention to the business model. I want to show two different reports that they put out this week to kind of make my point. The first one is a press release, expert panel expects home prices will grow at a steady pace starting in 2024. Now, obviously, that's a great article to send for buyer leads, right? If you're a buyer, you're going to go, wow, market price is going to go up. And they kind of fluff over that same panel says prices will go down in 2023, but it'll start going back up in 2024 through 2027. So what they're projecting is this group of experts, whoever they are, know they're predicting the future. Prices are going to go down, but then they're going to magically turn and go up. If you ever saw the movie JFK, it's like the magic bullet. It went down, it went up, it went left, it went right. What's not here is any basis for that assessment, meaning why are the factors causing a downturn in 2023 not going to continue in 2024 and will be significant? And why are they projecting a normal historic 3.5% rise 2024 through 2027 when we have some really different market factors like high inflation? Is that realistic? There's no basis, there's no questions. There's just experts who are telling us what's going on here. I just find it fascinating how everybody's happy. And even at the end, all it just says is that Zillow hired this group called, the name was in the article somewhere. And this group is a group of experts. And they have some very sharp people on there, but there's 117 experts. Economists generally are people who want to talk about business, but don't know anything about business. So when an expert panel of economists predicts something, I would say, hold on to your wallet. They're getting paid to make their assessment. If they're wrong, it doesn't cost them anything. And I find it fascinating that Zillow, a great company in terms of resources, huge company, are they tracking these experts, their predictions from last year and year before? Are they saying, well, we use these experts because these are good experts, the other ones are bad experts that we avoid? No, nobody cares that last year's experts are wrong. It's kind of like if you watch football where they project who's going to win or lose. Very rarely they go back and say, oh, what was your win-loss record? Should I put my money with you or not? Here you have Zillow, here's an article, people predict something, oh, then it must be true because Zillow paid a group and the group published a report and then Zillow puts the report in the news and then other companies are going to cite, Zillow says prices are going to go up over the next couple of years. And so it's just this nonstop hamster wheel of misinformation going through to mislead buyers and sellers. And all of this is really, I think, to accommodate the advertisement that these companies like Zillow do. Let's go a little further. The next press release I think is even worse. This one is 9 in 10 first-time sellers think they could have gotten a higher price by making different choices. Now, think about this. These are people who've sold, by definition, in their lifetime, one house. And Zillow pulls them, and they'll say, I could have got more. Now, first off, that sounds kind of odd. In my experience, at least half sellers are happy, half are unhappy, a third are happy, a third are happy, a third are kind of in the middle about how the numbers work. 9 in 10 think they couldn't gotten more. That's not my experience with life. I've never heard that. Now, I do think that what Zillow does here is they're kind of playing into the more than the realtor does, so let us show you what the facts are. And by kind of cementing misinformation in the seller's head, Zillow gets to be their friend. And I'll show you what I mean by that. In this article, they list 4 regrets. Number 1, pricing incorrectly. So these sellers, first-time sellers with no experience other than their one house that they're emotionally tied to, therefore not objective. These sellers say, well, if we wish we had priced the highest higher, that would have got a higher price. As if to say buyers look at a house and go, oh, it's listed at 400. Oh no, it's 440. We have to offer 430. The reality is when a house is priced at 440, home buyers looking at 400 below will often not look at those houses at all or assume the $440,000 house is beyond their means. And so just because you list the house higher, Zillow in their own statistics, in their own book, wrote that the best way to get the maximum price is by pricing it according to the actual value, creating the most competition. Competition is what drives the best result in general for a seller who's on a limited timeline. Now, if you have a long time, you can start high and cut down. Eventually, you'll create the competition. But what they're talking about is a first-time home seller, a retail seller, clearly just by listing the house house higher, they're going to get a higher price. And to Zillow's credit, they do kind of correct them by saying that the market's different, the pricing too high can. Now, I don't know why they would say the market's different because Zillow wrote this in 2015, 8 years ago. The pricing too high will cause a lower sales price, not a higher sales price. Okay, regret number 2, ignoring online curb appeal. So what they say is that home sellers say, well, if we could have just had better photos, that would have sold our house for more. So imagine now a home seller saying, our house we sold for $900,000. If we just had better photos, a better landscaping and trimmed it up better and better lighting, a better day, somebody would have paid $940,000 instead of $900,000 for that house. That's just ridiculous. All the photos do is get people to the property, but with inventory as tight as is now, every buyer is looking at every house 10 times over. I mean, show me any data that says more photos get you a better price. I don't know if that's true. We want to get people to the house once they're there. There was a time during the COVID where you could not sell a house physically as easy as we can now. And the goal is to get people to buy almost sight unseen with a very limited showing. Now, though, anybody can go back into a house, open house, walk it, go back numerous times. In fact, many buyers do. So I don't know that the online is going to make a big difference. But regret 3 here is really my bone to pick with Zillow. Bad timing. So a quarter of these sellers, first-time sellers, selling their own house, say they wish they had sold at a different time. Now, what does that really mean? They sold it in March, in which they sold in June. They sold it in June, in which they sold in September, because the prices went up. There's no seller that says to me now, oh, gee, I wish I hadn't sold it last year. I wish I put it in the market now when prices might be a little lower. There's no seller saying the wrong time there. What they're saying is that the sellers wish they could have magically timed the market ideally to get the best price. Now, many of these sellers were selling to buy a house. So the obvious reality is if they got a slightly higher price for their home, they probably have paid a slightly higher price for the house they're buying. And since typically the house people are buying is higher than when they're selling, they would have lost out. And many don't realize that. Number 2, it's impossible to time the market. Nobody's ever done it successfully over time. It's like playing the lotto. You might win, you might lose. When the market was going up, every seller said to me, I want to wait because prices are going up. I said, they didn't go up, they went up. They may continue, they may not. There's no way to predict the future. And many sellers got burned by waiting too long. Zillow knows that. But what they do here, that I think is really the most dishonest part, is they kind of play on that and say, well, the timing of the sale causes a lot of stress. Here's a solution. You might want to get a cash buyer through Opendoor. Well, that sounds easy. I mean, instead of just timing the market, I could pick the last second when I want to sell it, and I'll just call Opendoor and they'll hand everything for me. Sounds great, but by definition, Opendoor's plan is to buy the property at a discount to the market so they can make the profit that the seller otherwise would get by going to the full retail market. They're saying, wait till the end. Now you're in a rush, take a discount. No, the sellers who wanted to time the market want the top dollar. They don't want to settle for a discount. But the dishonest part, in my opinion, is that Zillow doesn't mention Opendoor is their partner, that they're making money. Anybody who chooses to list with Opendoor, money's going in Zillow's pocket. They're being marketed on Zillow, and they have some other relationship on those leads and how those leads are being done. And nowhere do they list in the down below their disclaimers, do they list that they're an affiliated relationship with Opendoor. They have a publicly declared contract with them that they announced publicly and with great fanfare. But they don't mention in the article. So it's kind of like saying, oh, gee, there's this great company called Opendoor. You might try them. That's really Zillow. That's really them. So to me, that's just dishonest. They play on the insecurity. They confirm the insecurity by saying, well, yeah, you could time the market and we'll help you do it. But their solution doesn't solve that customer's problem. That customer wants top dollar, not cash for convenience, which is what Opendoor stands. So at the end of the day, I think they're really being dishonest. The fourth regret, and again, this is another one where this is easily in Zillow's wheelhouse, which is data, which is it says that there's a regret of skipping on repairs. And what they say is that sellers think, well, if I had just done more to fix the house up, I could have made the house worth more. I could have spent $10,000 on my house. And this is a common suggestion from sellers I talk to. I could spend $10,000 on my house and clean it up and get an extra $50,000. It doesn't work that way, right? A buyer looks at a house and figures they could buy paint, they can buy carpet themselves if they wanted to, or pay a contractor to do it, very commonly do. The only way it makes sense is if you have some particular insight, either on the pricing, like you're a contractor and you get wholesale prices, or you're solving a defect in the property. Sometimes there's a bedroom that has no access. You put the door in the back, you add a bathroom in a bedroom, maybe. But generally speaking, there's nothing you can do that will add more value than the money you spend. Well, Bill, you sound confident. How do you say that? Because I rely on the data. And this is data that's publicly available to anybody who's interested. It's a great resource. It's called Remodeling Magazine. It's online, phenomenal. And they have a cost versus value resource. And they track it a million different ways. One of the ways they track it is you could not only by sections of the United States, they break down individual jobs. In fact, I should have brought this up before I did that, but it's so easy and quick. You can see each of these areas that you can go into. Actually, I just pull up this. Oops, this is the wrong one. I'll pull up the downline. Where did I do it? Oh, that's a shame. I thought I was prepared for this, and I know that I pulled up the download. They have a great download that shows you what the value of the property is, the project is. And so here I'll do it. I'll just do it live. Los Angeles, and you can get a full detailed report here by putting in your data again. I'm not going to do that, but basically it lists of all the different projects, what the cost is average in that area, what the resale value of that is, and what percentage you retain. You can see top to bottom, you can sort. There is nothing that gets you 100%. Replacing your garage door gets you close as 99%. Now, maybe if you have the worst garage door ever, that you might, if you spend that amount of money, you might get a little bit more. But all these other jobs, minor kitchen remodel, 88%. You'll spend $34,000. It will add about $30,000 to the price of the house. Putting a deck on, you'll spend $30,000 and you'll add $25,000 to the value of the property. This is data from actual professionals in the industry of remodeling that this magazine coordinates and sorts by zip code and by region, makes available. Easily, Zillow would have access to this data source and would say, well, if you're great as you should spend more money. The truth is, you should spend more money on your property. You should clean it up. You should get all the junk out, make it available, make it smell nice, maybe clean your carpets. Other than that, there's nothing you can do and spend money on that will net you more, net, bottom line as a profit. But instead, Zillow leaves the idea here that maybe you can figure that out on your own. You really can't. There's no real option. So at the end of the day, I got to say, Zillow, which used to be one of the great resources for buyers and sellers for my money, it's a great resource if you're looking to buy leads as a real estate agent, I guess, or as a mortgage broker. Buy leads from people who really don't want to talk to you, but they really want to learn more about a particular house. I'm not interested in paying for that. What I will say is many sellers and buyers go there and get misled, and I think these two articles show that. So what should you do? Well, first off, always focus on what you want to do. When it's a good time for you to sell, it's a good time to sell. If it's a good time for you to buy, then it's a good time for you to buy. If it's ready and the right time, then do what's best for you. As far as your property, get a professional to help you make an assessment before you spend any money. Let's get quotes and let's compare sales of properties to see if you're going to recoup any value. Most likely not. But what we can do is clean up the property, get rid of the junk, make it as appealing as possible from the outside. Get a gardener out there perhaps, pick up the trash, make it look nice, get some good pictures, and get top dollar. So either way, if I can help you, reach out, call, text, or email. I'm Bill Gross. I'm on social media at Bill Gross EXP. And as always, make today your best day ever. Thanks so much.